Hey y'all, it's Caitlyn. By popular request. So, I've been talking about doing a rant video for Sailor Moon for a while. I did it a little bit in a random haul video I did not too long ago. Drew said he wanted more. And I'm like, okay. So, I sat down and I wrote some highlights. So, I kind of divided it between two main categories. One being banned for stupid reasons, or semi-stupid reasons, and the other one is LGBTQ. This is going to be interesting. Now, in this video, I'm talking about the original Sailor Moon English dub. Okay, I'm not talking about Sailor Moon Crystal. I'm not talking about the remake of the original Sailor Moon, which they did remake it, okay? All of these issues that I'm about to talk about have been corrected in a redubbing of Sailor Moon from a few years ago. But if you're from the 90s, or you were raised in the 90s and you watch Sailor Moon, this is the version that you got, the censored, weird, incestual version. So again, all this has been corrected, and none of this is canon necessarily, because this is just what Westerners thought they had to do to protect the kids. They still have a long way to go. They're still focusing on the wrong things all these years later. But anyway, so there were a few episodes that were censored. One for a very stupid reason. Two of them for a very stupid reason. Two of them for two different reasons, but there were 4 episodes altogether. The other 2 were banned for reasons that I understand, but I still question. So the first one, there was an episode in season 1 and one in season 2 that was banned because the girls were in their swimsuits. That's it. That's the only reason why it was banned. Because Sailor Moon and her friends were at the beach and they were in their swimsuits. That's it. That's the only reason. Now, both of those episodes, neither of them were vital to the story. So I will say that. So, it wasn't like one where a new Sailor Senshi joined the group. By the way, if I do talk about their English names, or just the Sailor Moon or the Sailor Scouts in general, I'll probably say their Japanese names because I'm more familiar with those now due to actually watching the correct version and reading the mangas and things. So I'll probably be using their Japanese names because I'm more familiar with it. So yeah, Usagi and Rei and Ami, they're just in their bathing suits. There was another one in season 2 where it had Chibiusa in it. That was the only reason that it was censored. That was the only reason why it was a banned episode. I don't understand it, because I damn well remember episodes of Totally Spies where they had their bathing suits on, and that's a Canadian show, but it aired in America. I don't understand. I know there was episodes where I know there was an episode of Digimon where Sora and Mimi were wrapped in a towel, they're kids, but they were taking a shower and something interrupted them, and then they're running around with a towel on. That wasn't banned, but this, with Usagi and them in their bathing suits, were. I don't get it. But the other 2 I kind of get. So there was an episode, again, in season 1. I believe both of these were actually in season 1. One of them was actually the second ever episode. And it was shown, or it was banned because it showed girls' underwear, or lack of underwear. Let me explain. So the second episode ever of Sailor Moon, one of her classmates, Melvin, which is the English name because I never bothered to remember his name in Japanese, Melvin is put under a spell, and he's like the nerdy, studious kid, and it turns him into more of a rebellious kid. And one of the scenes that happens is that he flips his teacher's skirt up and you see her underwear. I understand that's not the behavior you want to set for children. And yeah, that's a running gag in Japan. Unfortunately, it still is, I feel like. If you ever watched the original Pokemon intro, that scene in the intro where Pikachu just runs through some random girl's skirt and you never, or her legs, and you never see that girl in any of the show. Like, I remember being a little kid, like, who is that character and when are they going to introduce her? They never did. They literally added that just for the under the skirt joke. Japan's not perfect either. But I understand that. But that was still a non-vital episode. The other one, however, was. So, right after they introduced Sailor Venus, Minako, they showed an episode which told her backstory, which I feel is vital to Venus as a character. Because it shows her life living in London, England. She was caught up in this weird love triangle with this boy that she had, an older boy that she had a very big crush on, and this older girl who was like a sister to her, and they ended up getting together, and it broke Minako's heart. And it was a very, very powerful episode for Minako, especially if you know her character. Because the thing is, yes, the Senshi are named after planets, but the planets are named after the Greek gods. And so they kind of, or the Roman gods, rather. So they kind of connected the dots there, too. So, like, Venus is the Roman goddess of love, and so love is a lot of what Minako is all about, the emotion. She has attacks that deal with love, like the Venus Love Me chain attack that she has. She's always a little bit boy crazy. There was that episode in season 3 where she has her heart crystal taken and she's happy about it because seeing it in person proves that she has a heart. Like, you can tell, like, love and romance is something very important to her. But the reason why they banned Minako's backstory episode is because at the very end of the episode, she's standing on top of a building. The wind comes by, it lifts her skirt just slightly enough that alludes to the fact that she's not wearing underwear. We're talking milliseconds here. Now, again, showing an underage girl, which in Japan it's not underage. Unfortunately, the age of consent in Japan is 13, if you didn't know. Yeah, I don't like it either. But showing that is not okay. I agree. It's not okay. I understand why they took it out. But we're talking milliseconds here. We're talking literal milliseconds. I wouldn't have noticed it if I hadn't seen why that episode was banned and then rewatched it or went back and watched it in the subbed version so that I could see it as a kid. I wouldn't have noticed it if I didn't know what to look for. Okay? Which leads me to the question, and if anyone knows the answer to this, please let me know. Why? It has to be based on who owns the rights to them. Because some animes are heavily censored and others aren't. Like Pokemon, for example. It had the same treatment as Sailor Moon, where if an episode didn't adhere to American values, I guess you could say, it was totally banned. So like the episode where James is wearing a fake pair of breasts and is rocking a bikini. The episode where Ash has a gun to his head. I very much understand. But then you have the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series where they just censor that stuff out. Like, I remember being very confused in that episode where Pegasus's goons comes up behind Kaiba and just points threateningly to him, and like, really, that's supposed to threaten him? Turns out in the actual version, in the original version, they have 2 guns pointed at him, so yeah, I understand it now. But in the English version, they censored the guns out. They just took it off and replaced it to make it look like they were just pointing at him. So I guess it has to be who owns it, whether they have the right to mess with it or not. Okay, so pause right here. So, after I recorded this video, Watch Mojo dropped a video talking about the censorship in Sailor Moon, ironically enough. And I watched that, and I realized that they actually took out a lot of what they considered more violent scenes in Sailor Moon. So they did edit and cut down the episode, but they didn't do it for this. Again, we're talking milliseconds here, and it's pissing me off. I don't understand why they didn't do it. Now for the LGBTQ issues. This one's going to be fun, right? Okay, let's talk about gender switching first. So there was 2 characters, vital characters to the story, that they switched the gender on. First one was Zoisite. Zoisite is one of the 4 knights in the original season, first season. He and Malachi are a couple. Okay? Zoisite and Malachite are a couple. They're very obviously a couple in the anime and in other media as well. But it's very clear that Zoisite cares a lot about Malachite because, you know, he goes to him for comfort in an episode that's in a scene that's honestly very touching. But you can't have gays around children. Apparently that's a theme that's still an issue. I thought we were past it, but apparently not. But Zoisite was depicted as having long, brownish blonde hair, slim figure. It was enough that they could make him pass as a her. And so they made Zoisite a female in the original dub. And then they did it again in season 4 with Fisheye. Now, Fisheye was a little bit different now. Now, before I get too much further, I watched this version of Sailor Moon as a kid watching Cartoon Network, and that was still in a time when they could take a cartoon off of the roster without any warning or anything. Like, I remember a lot of kids, or a lot of episodes I watched as a kid, or shows I watched as a kid being canceled. I would go to watch them when they were supposed to be on, and they just never came on, and they weren't on at any other time either. So I got, like, halfway through season 1 before it was canceled, and I rediscovered the show again years later. So here's the thing with Fisheye, as I say this. Fisheye was a guy, again, who would disguise himself as a female, was very attracted to males, so he was a very femmy dude, basically. And he would disguise himself as a female, basically go in drag. But again, because of that, they had to make him a her. So they made Fisheye canonically female in the English dub. Now here's the funny thing. Again, I said he dressed as a woman. I don't know if this episode was banned or not, because it was dubbed. I can tell you this, the other 4 that we were talking about, the ones with the swimsuits and the underwear, those were never even dubbed, okay? This episode was dubbed because I watched it in dubbed when I was a kid. But there was an episode where Fisheye is in his underwear, and just his underwear, just his briefs. You can see his chest, obviously a very manly build. They at least dubbed it. I don't know if they ever showed it on any public cable channel. If someone knows, let me know. But I remember being very, very confused. Because I'm like, is anyone going to talk about the fact that this girl is now just suddenly in a dude's body? It's because of this that a lot of people make a headcanon of Fisheye being either non-binary or trans, which I would fully support either of them. In fact, it would make a hell of a lot more sense if they had depicted her as being trans to me, because he does act so feminine. See, I'm still doing it. But he does act so very feminine. Again, there's nothing wrong with being a femmy dude. There's nothing wrong with being a femmy gay dude. There's nothing wrong with being a femmy drag queen. And can you imagine if they did either A, just make him the character that he was supposed to be, which was a femmy gay dude, or make her a transgender woman? The impact that would have had on LGBTQ youth would have been incredible. Same thing with Zoisite. Would have been incredible. And for the record, you can be a transgender woman or man and not have any gender forming treatment or surgery. It just depends on the individual person. Some people want to have gender affirming healthcare and surgeries, other people don't. Some people want to take the hormones, some people don't want to take the surgery. Some people want to take the surgery and not take the hormones. Some people don't want to do either, some people want to do both. It doesn't fucking matter. Just be who you want to be and fight this stupid legislation that's trying to quiet you. And hopefully us cisgender people will grow the fuck up and start helping you a lot more than we are right now. But anyway, okay, next up is the couple/cousins. That's how I wrote it down here. I talked about this one in the Random Haul video, Uranus and Neptune. In Japan, Uranus and Neptune, Haruka and Michiru, are a couple. A lesbian couple. Okay? Haruka is a very butch lesbian. She wears dudes' clothes. She works on cars and drives motorcycles. You know, she's very masculine in who she is and what she likes. Michiru, very, very feminine. Always wearing beautiful dresses most of the time. Beautiful long hair. She's a violinist and an artist. And they're just the perfect couple. But because they couldn't have a gay character, or gay characters, or gay couples, they had to make them cousins. Because they couldn't do the same thing that they did with Zoisite and later on with Fisheye. Because Haruka was definitely a girl, because she was a Sailor Scout and wore the little sailor skirt when she was transformed, just like all the others since she did. So they couldn't do that with her. They couldn't make her a dude, even though I'm sure that was what the first thought was. So they made them cousins instead, which made some episodes questionable. There was one episode in season 3 where the two of them enter a couples contest. Oh, they're just entering as a joke. They're just cousins. Ha ha ha. They won. They won. And they're still calling them cousins. And there was a whole backstory episode where you see where they first meet and where they first start falling in love with each other. And watching, if you watch that episode in Japanese and then watched it in English, it's two totally separate episodes. You're still seeing the same stuff on screen. Watching it in English, that episode makes 0 sense. Even later on, there's an episode where Michiru seemingly sacrifices herself for Haruka, which I'm not saying you can't do that for a family member, but still, just weird. And there was also another episode that showed a scene with their hands, holding their hands. Very, I want to use the word sensual. Which again, it just made for an awkward time when you think of them as cousins. And the fact that they thought that that was better, a lesbian couple, is just weird to me. Now we're getting to the last season. Season 5. Season 5 was never dubbed into English. Why? 2 reasons. One, it became more difficult, apparently, to show... can't even say it without laughing. To show Haruka and Michiru as being cousins. I'm pretty sure it started off that way if you have them winning a couples contest. But that was one of the reasons why they said they never dubbed it. The other reason was because of the Sailor Starlights. So the Sailor Starlights are, I would call them gender fluid. They are beings from another planet where they were female. When they come into Earth's atmosphere, their bodies change to male. Okay? When they transform into their Sailor Starlight form, they become women again. So they kind of go back and forth between being men and being women. To me, that's gender fluid. So that's pretty much the definition of gender fluid. Now, here's the kicker for this. Sailor Moon is from the 90s. So we're talking 90s, early 2000s, when it would have aired in America. There was another anime called Bakugan. You might have heard of it, you might not have. Season 1 of Bakugan had a villain who turned out to be one of the... I'm trying not to spoil it in case someone does want to watch it. But it turned out that he was a she. Let's put it that way. She did not realize that she basically had a split personality, where she would turn into the villain who was a boy. And the basically kind of like a split personality thing. But the point is their bodies would change from female to male to female. Kind of the same way that the Starlights did. So they were happy. This was a few years later than Sailor Moon, but still not that long later. They're fine with it being a villain to do that, but not one of the heroes. Keep in mind, the first depiction of lesbians on TV in like a fictional setting, they were serial killers. Kind of the same thing, isn't it? I mean, obviously a lot of differences, but they're okay with genderqueer people depicting villains, just not the heroes. Doesn't that piss you off? But it definitely pisses me off. Season 5, it's the best season of them all. It wraps up the story in a beautiful way. I'm not saying there's a few harebrained things here and there. It brings back the Outer Scouts. They went away from season 4, so you have Haruka, Michiru, and Setsuna, and Hotaru, and that was another thing. One of the reasons why it was harder to make it look like though they were cousins was because they basically started a family. In season 3, Sailor Saturn gets turned back into an infant. And it's becoming clearer that they're going to need Sailor Saturn again. And so the other 3 Outer Scouts, Haruka, Michiru, and Sailor Pluto, Setsuna, raise Hotaru together. Now, Setsuna is not part of their couple, but Haruka calls, or Hotaru, Sailor Saturn, as an infant or as a child, calls Haruka Papa. So she calls the other 2 Mama, Michiru Mama, Setsuna Mama, Haruka Papa. So it makes that family unit. There was a queer family unit, and they did not feel comfortable putting that on TV. But another reason why they did not show season 5 is because in the last episode, you do see Sailor Moon, Usagi, and she appears nude. You can't really see anything vital, but it's kind of obvious that she is supposed to be nude. Meanwhile, season 3, you do see an episode of Haruka de-transforming, which you never see that. You never see any of the Sailor Senshi de-transforming. Becomes very obvious why after you see that. You see her walking away, she's deforming, and her clothes disappear entirely, and then she comes back in her normal clothes. And so for a few seconds on screen, she's naked, and you can't see her ass. So, again, that was part of the dubbed thing. They didn't ban the episode, so they'll ban Michiru or Minako's backstory because it shows just a teeny bit of butt cheek. But they will keep the episode where it shows full back nudity of Haruka. I just now remembered that. Why? Unless it's a thing like the fisheye thing, which I don't know if that episode of Fisheye where she does show her, or he does show his bare chest, was banned or not. Because again, I saw it on the internet, I didn't see it on like cable or anything. Same thing with the one where it shows Haruka's ass. I don't understand many of the decisions that was made back then. If you guys know of any other animes that have really stupid reasons why they were banned, please let me know, because I know the Pokemon ones, the epilepsy episode, again, the one where Ash has a gun to his head, James boobs, I know those ones. The Earthquake one, most of the Jinx one, obviously, but those I understand more. I don't like the episode. I don't like that they banned the episode with James with his boobs. That's the only one that I would question. All the others from Pokemon that I can think of, it's a very reasonable thing not to want to have a gun pointed at a 10-year-old's head, although apparently that's becoming more of a trend now and more acceptable for some reason for lawmakers. I would have loved to have seen Sailor, or the last episode dubbed into English in the original one, just to see what kind of cockamamie bullshit they would make up for Haruka and Michiru. I, as an adult, just to be able to go back and watch it and make fun of them would have been enough for me. So let me know, for those of you who have watched Sailor Moon, is there anything I missed? Because, to be honest, I didn't do any research for this. I'm just going based off stuff that I've known pretty much all my life. I didn't go back to look to see if there was any more episodes banned for stupid reasons. This is just stuff that I remember watching and researching a little bit about when I was a kid, and it's just stuck with me. All those research reports I did, don't remember anything, but I remember the research I did in my personal time for Sailor Moon. But, yeah, they made some poor decisions, especially when it came to the gay characters. There was no reason for Zoisite to be dubbed as a female. There was no reason for Fisheye to be dubbed as a female. Damn sure no reason to show Haruka and Michiru as cousins. That's the worst one. They won a couple contest, and they're cousins. And it didn't take place in Alabama. Okay, so we're supposed to believe that. But yeah, it just made for a very weird time. Looking back on it, it's just kind of weird. So if you are new to Sailor Moon and you do want to watch it, I would recommend Sailor Moon Crystal. It follows the manga, and it's frankly shorter than the original Sailor Moon series is. Much more action-packed, if you like that. If you like more where it's like more breather episodes, then you can watch the original Sailor Moon. If you want to watch it dubbed, fine. The newer version, again, it doesn't have like the original voice actors, like the official voice actors. Basically, a bunch of people got together and said, let's redub the series. It was I think it was more of a fan-made project, fully honest, where they basically got all the episodes and made them the way that they were supposed to be dubbed in the originally. So I would recommend one of those. Thank you guys for putting up with this 30-minute rant with me. Let me know what you thought about it, what your feedback is, what your opinions are of these subjects, because it was just kind of weird. But anyway, y'all, thank you all so much for watching. Remember, like always, it's a community, not a competition, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.